Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Jeremy Goodwin.
It was a spectacular fire. It was insane to see a building like that burn that way.
Like, I had the front doors open to the cathedral, the church part of it, and you could see that the power was still on, but the entire roof was on fire.
It was crazy. You know, that's where we would be at today had there not been a fire.
But we're not, so we're pivoting.
But we're not.
Yeah.
So now we're working with all of our engineers and architects to figure out what that pivot could potentially look like.
What's the new plan?
I think listeners can hear that your energy level has not been diminished.
That's right.
No, we're stoked. We're still real stoked.
In late June, a 4-alarm fire destroyed much of the converted church that housed Sk8 Liborius. That's an indoor skate park and gathering place in North St. Louis. Hundreds of people turned up to clear debris and help salvage what they could from the former sanctuary, whose roof collapsed from the fire damage. But the big picture of long-term recovery for Sk8 Liborius is still unclear. Its leaders had put together a nonprofit organization to produce more events in the former church, looking to become a community center or even offer rooms for rent as a bed and breakfast. Now Sk8 Liborius has to answer the question, what's next? So joining me to talk about it today are three leaders of Sk8 Liborius. We have co-founders Dave Blum and Brian Bedwell. Dave and Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us back.
And Lorna Curdy, she leads Liborius Urban Art Studios. That's the nonprofit that was launched in 2016 with big plans for expansion. Lorna, thanks. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So I understand, Lorna, you're fresh from a morning meeting where the Sk8 Liborius folks were hashing out some of your next steps. What's on your plate right now in this immediate aftermath?
Well, right now we are looking to get an assessment to figure out the viability of the building, what we can continue to historically preserve, and what we might not be able to or whatnot. So we're working to figure out exactly how we can move forward.
Dave, can any of the building be salvaged?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's it's like a sliding scale. So the roof isn't there anymore, obviously, but like those walls are still good and the foundation is still good, and like they built things differently back in the 1850s when they built that church, and there's plenty of things that can still be done. It's just an issue of what are you going to do, and it's kind of all a function of money at that point.
How much money we can raise.
Yeah.
And then also just design plans and things. But it's certainly not dead. Like
we're still in the assessment phase right now. We had to figure out some of those walls possibly could be saved and stuff. We don't know for sure exactly what's going on. So we're trying to get some engineers together, some architects and stuff like that to try to help us out to kind of push us in the direction of where we need to be going forward.
Yeah. People build stuff out of old burnt out buildings all the time. There's plenty of good bones there.
Brian, can you tell us what caused the fire?
Well, we're not for sure 100% positive. We're assuming it's an electrical fire. I was there the next day also, walked around with some of the fire inspectors. It looked like there's two buildings as part of the property. One's the rectory building and one's the actual church building. It started in the kitchen of the rectory building. It looks like I said there was an electrical fire. And then it quickly spread to the roof immediately. It barely touched even the second floor or anything. And then it went straight to the roof. And then from there, the winds had picked up outside. Whenever they began to try to put it out, it was just kind of showering the actual church side of it with embers in the roof. And then the roof caught on fire of that and then burnt from the roof down. I mean, there was one point in the evening that it was burning that, like, I had the front doors open to the cathedral, the church part of it, and you could see that the power was still on, but the entire roof was on fire because it started from the top down, so from the wind.
Well, we don't know exactly. We haven't got the
Captain Garen Mosby of the St. Louis Fire Department tells us the investigation is ongoing, but it's in its final stages. He says investigators right now believe the fire started in the kitchen of the rectory on the first floor. The fire moved up to the upper floors, eventually breaching the roof and then into Sk8 Liborius. Lorna, was the building insured?
No. It was an uninsurable building. Unfortunately, we were maybe about 2 to 3 weeks away from getting our construction permits so that we could start doing the changes that we've been raising money for.
And then would have been insurable then at that
and
point.
then
You get construction insurance at that point. But
So you were weeks or months away from being in a more stable situation.
Yeah, a week or two.
About a week. We've been working with like a really incredible team at V3 Architects, Gabe McKee and Kurt and Thad and everybody over there. And so they were pretty much done with all of our construction documents. And Brian and the guys over at Frontenac Engineers have been doing all of our engineering. And as soon as those were done, you go get building permits. And with building permits, you get construction insurance. You're in the construction phase. And that was slated to happen. I mean, we'd be there right now. You know, that's where we would be at today had there not been a fire.
but we're not, so we're pivoting.
But we're not.
Yeah.
So now we're working with all of our engineers and architects to figure out what that pivot could potentially look like.
What's the new plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you at the point of being able to sort that out?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of options, like you know, and everything from outdoor public skate park out of concrete to people have been talking about what's the possibility of doing some other types of roof structures, like what part of the walls we do, what can we do with the tower? Like, there's a ton of everything's an option, but it's looking at
especially
assessment,
now before the assessment. Once the assessment's in, we'll really have a lot better idea of what we're working with.
And we're hoping to get that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it important to you to stay at the same location, 1850 Hogan Street?
Yeah.
Definitely. We have our community over there has been very gracious with us. We've been over there for like 12 years now working on the place. All of our neighbors loved us. They're all very sad to see it go. It's a rough neighborhood over there. Just became blighted. So there's a lot of abandoned buildings and stuff like that. And in fact, our building had been abandoned for a while before. We got a hold of it.
20 years.
They really liked what we were doing there. They all supported us. Not to mention just our community alone here in the city, but all around the world. We've been having calls from all over. The very next day I had calls from Germany and Canada. People's like, "What happened? What happened?" And very interested. Even the people that haven't been there, I feel like a lot of people are touched by just our ingenuity and trying to move forward, and so a lot of people are inspired by it. And that being said, we have tons of support. We want to thank all of our supporters across the world everywhere.
Did people come out of the woodwork during and immediately after the fire to help out?
It's been amazing. I think we had hundreds of volunteers came out. I mean, Saturday, I spent a good chunk of Saturday because at first we didn't want to let anybody go inside, and a bunch of people came up to me, some of the girls that quad skate there, and they were just crying, like, "Can we come inside just for closure?" And I didn't really think about it from that, because when you're in the middle looking out, all I see is problems and things to fix, but I wasn't really taking stock of what it meant to other people. And so I spent a good chunk of Saturday just walking people in, and one after one, they'd peek around the corner and burst into tears, and then I bring another group in and they'd peek around the corner and burst into tears. And we just had, I answered, me and Casey, our curator, for the art gallery we had there, we spent 7 hours answering DMs. I think hundreds of them were in other languages.
Direct messages?
Yeah, on Instagram. We answered 3,000 DMs.
We also had tons of, not only did volunteers come out and help us out, we had tons of restaurants donate food to us and looking out for us.
High Point.
Shout out.
And Sugar Fire, and then
Logan Eli over at Press donated money from Logan's a homie.
Panera Bread did too as well. So we just had great amounts of supports from our friends in the restaurant community, and then we also had help with the dumpsters. And
so shout out to Bob Rocca, and Tony
solid.
Rocca. Bob Rocca and Tony, guys I knew from my time working at the City Museum. Bob got some guys from Republic to come out and donate us 2 dumpsters, and him and Tony came out with a skid loader because we wanted to clean all the debris up. We didn't leave the neighborhood looking like a war zone. It was, there was debris everywhere.
The whole roof fell off. It's a slate roof. It was sliding off throughout the entire fire. So within 20 or 30 feet of the building, there was just a debris field.
Yeah.
That's really what a lot of the first 2 to 3 days was making sure that our community didn't feel bombarded with all of the mess. So we cleaned that up. We secured the building so nobody could get in and
get hurt.
Shout out to Ted Lehman, who was another City Museum buddy of mine that has been a big, huge part of the church, lined out where the fences would go.
He's been there the whole time with us. He's a great guy.
So it burnt on by Thursday morning, and then by Monday morning, everything was fenced, boarded up, cleaned up, completely done. We had hundreds of people show up to help. It was like
so thanks to all of our volunteers.
Yeah. It was a massive fire. They started burning around 10:30 on Wednesday night, and there were still fire trucks putting water on at 10:30 the next morning still.
And I will say,
big thanks to our St. Louis Fire Department crew. They really came through, risked their lives to put it out.
Yeah, it was amazing. And I've never, just if I had to divorce myself from how much the project means to me, it was a spectacular fire. Evan, it was insane to see a building like that burn that way. It was crazy.
And I think all the support you're talking about speaks to Sk8 Liborious in the community and why you are needed. Let's talk a bit about what's the need in St. Louis that Sk8 Liborious has been filling. Why is this such an important?
Well, the obvious first one is the skate park situation. St. Louis does not have. There's only one other free public skate park available in the city. That's one that I actually run a nonprofit that started that. Or, well, not just me, tons of volunteers, right. And it's 100% volunteer built and 100% fundraised money. We didn't get any grants or anything like that. The community built that skate park, and it's over there off of Morgan Ford Road. It's called Peter Matthews Memorial Skate Garden. It's actually the only one. So, like, the immediate need of just having the skate park around that was available for more people to be able to recreate, and exercise and whatever else was there.
And I like to talk about, because I used to hang out with skaters when I was in high school and stuff like that. Never skated myself, but what has always been incredibly interesting about the skate culture is how inclusive it naturally is. Mm-hmm. Everybody's always included.
There's no color, there's no backgrounds or nothing like that. I mean, if you can do a kickflip, you can do a kickflip. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? The skills you get through skateboarding and any type of action sports is like analogous for the mentality you need to be good at anything you do. Falling down, failing, and trying again.
Tenacity.
A lot of the youth outreach things we did in the community. St. Louis it's got no lack of talent, but it's got a lot of lack of opportunity. There's a lot of underserved kids, and you don't find out that you're an amazing printmaker or photographer or whatever if you never get to do printmaking or photography or carpentry. You just spend every day trying to survive in your neighborhood. There's just a massive loss of creative potential. It's just really sad, not even for those kids, but for all of us, for everyone. And so our goal was to create an inclusive third space where kids could go to, where you're encouraged to find out what you're passionate about and pursue it.
Kids and young people.
Everyone. Adults even. We were having days there before the end where it was volunteer days, and so we'd have one day we needed to do a little bit of concrete out in the yard around some window wells we had, and the people came out. We taught them how to do it.
Tuck pointing.
We had a tuck pointing guy that came through, a professional tuck pointer came through one weekend, and that was people that showed up that needed to do a little tuck pointing in their house, and they just learned how to do it then just through us for free.
A lot of the ramps, Bedwell's always been huge of teaching. You don't know how to. A lot of folks they're union carpenters. The first thing they built was a ramp in someone's backyard. Yeah. I think Brian himself is talking. How many kids do you think you've trained how to be a carpenter through skateboarding? All the ramps are user built and stuff. They design them. What do you want? And we'll all build it together.
We've been doing it long enough now too, where we've seen kids that were kids when we first met them, and then they saw us doing construction work and stuff, and then now they're in the trades and they're making money doing those things.
Yeah, we're talking with Brian Bedwell, Dave Blum, and Lorna Curdy of Sk8 Liborious. And you have been raising money, as you mentioned, to do some more work at the church, and you put together a cool little video about that. And it includes Brian Bedwell talking about why St. Louis needs something like Sk8 Liborious.
I grew up kind of on a broken home situation, lived in the inner city. It was something that just kept me out of trouble. But here in St. Louis, we didn't really have any public skate parks or public facilities. Eventually we saw the need that, we needed to have some type of facilities for people like that were in that same situation that, needed a cheap recreational outlet that could be done anywhere. It brings people into it, and, everybody's a part of it.
What's the status for skaters right now in St. Louis? It's a tough environment to find a place to do your stuff safely, right?
Well, definitely. It's definitely changed the landscape since the 90s. Now that skateboarding is in the Olympics and stuff like that, it's not as looked down upon. There was a time whenever I was 16 years old, I got beat up by the police downtown just for skateboarding, you know what I'm saying? But it's not like that anymore. So it's definitely getting a little bit better and easier to, not be feeling like you're ruining somebody's property or whatever else, especially with the skate park that we have. Also out in the counties, there's a couple public skate parks that some of the county communities have got together and built. The one thing is, though, that's still, like I said, there's still lack is, the only one that you can get to, there's two that you can get to from a bus, you know what I'm saying? There's and skateboarding is one of those things that's, it's like $120 to get started doing it, you know what I'm saying? And if you think about, going on a T-ball team or a soccer team or something, you have to have equipment fees. You have to have, you got to pay to play, all this other stuff, right? And so that's not easily attainable from, lower income families. And skateboarding is one of those things for me. It's once you get the skateboard in your hand, all you need is some concrete or some asphalt to, try to practice doing something. So it's a lot more attainable, especially for lower income people. And like we said before, it builds a lot of things like determination and just a lot of different things that come out of it. It's a giant community, and it's a very open community. So
yeah, and we're talking a lot about skateboarders, but also quad and inline skaters.
Yeah, I like to say skate. I like to just say skate because skate is the community. It's any type of skating, any kind of it's all involved in there.
And the BMXers too.
Yeah.
So
support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Some folks have been tagging Tony Hawk on Facebook to try to get his attention
Yeah,
about
we
Sk8
noticed that.
Liborious right now.
We know Tony. He's a great guy.
Are there other names, whether he or other people in the larger skateboarding community out there, who can help you financially with this next step?
Well, hopefully.
Hopefully.
We're working on it. I think we're looking to see probably Steve Barra. A lot of the skaters out there know Steve Barra.
Shout out to Steve.
He's a original St. Louis guy, or lived in St. Louis for a little while whenever he was a youth. And he's actually coming through next week. Out in Effingham, Illinois, they have a giant contest called the Ham City Jam. Shout out to Dino Toll. That's going on next Saturday out there. He's coming to visit that, and he's probably going to do a walk through the church. He's been there before. He's actually in that video that you just played a clip from.
Yeah.
And they're talking about us and stuff. And he's a really well-known guy. He runs this thing called the Barracks out in California. And he's definitely interested in helping us out. We're actually in talks with people from the foundation, which used to be Tony Hawk Foundation.
Now the skateboard project.
Right, and they're trying to figure out how they can help us out right now. Like I said, we're still in this assessment phase right now, so we're just trying to pull it all together.
Yeah, the only thing for sure is that it's not dead. And it's not
we're
over.
not giving up. That's what's for sure.
And we need money.
Yeah, we need money. That's for sure.
And help.
too.
And help. We can
And
definitely
help.
use some in-kind.
Still here, need money, and
In-kind
et cetera.
donations
I mean, we
of people that have knowledge about architectural stuff. Any that stuff all costs money. Forensic architectural people, that all costs money. So if we have anybody out
Cranes.
there, crane
Yeah, we need a
operators,
crane operator.
machinery, anybody that's interested in donating those things to us, we would happily take you up on that.
Yeah,
so.
and you can email Sk8 Liborious at gmail.com.
Okay.
Or any of our socials, you could DM those. Those are watched, or really well watched. Dave is one of the guys that takes care of that, and then he'll definitely answer back. So.
And you can find folks can find links to Sk8 Liborious and related fundraising links at stlpr.org.
Great.
Lauren, tell me about Liborious Urban Art Studios. How does that fit into the bigger picture of what Sk8 Liborious is doing?
Well, that's a brainchild of Dave over here, but I will say that the plan was to build out urban art studios in the basement of the church. We had about as much square footage in the basement as we did in the sanctuary, and so we were thinking about how we could build it out to be white boxed, based studios that were based off the needs of the community. So what skills people wanted to learn, graphic design potentially, and it'll all be dependent on our partnerships. That is, I won't say that is not going to happen, but we still do have to assess the building, and once we understand what that looks like, then we can start talking about, what potential programming we'll actually be able to offer in the future.
Might take a different form.
Yeah, but right now we're just going to focus on how we can stay.
One day at a time. One day at a time.
One day at a time, for sure.
Well, I've imagined plans like renting rooms out, for instance, might not be in the cards right now.
There might not be rooms.
That's right.
too.
But there could, an outdoor art gallery is a thing that exists. There's
sure.
other ways to use the space, right?
A lot of the
If we
stuff.
end up with the skate park there too, we can definitely do classes teaching kids how to do skateboarding.
And a lot of the
different
stuff that we,
like that.
a lot of the stuff we did, like Brian was saying, it was out in the open. It was working on the building, and so it was teaching kids how to build ramps, which involves using saws and drills and all that. And a lot of those types of programming, a lot of the things that we did at the church, we can still do all of those things. There's certainly some things we can't.
Well, I can say the Liborious Urban Arts Studio's mission was to historically preserve the building, to continue having a world-renowned skate park, and then also to continue to foster the inclusive community that naturally comes with the skate culture. And so that is all still in our wheelhouse, and we're still committed to those things. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, our neighborhood needs it. That neighborhood up there really needs stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you to what extent is the local neighborhood around the church your audience?
To a pretty good extent. People come from all over the city, and all over the world. Like, we had people, we weren't even open yet, and we were having teams of people flying in from all over the world to show up there. But I think as far as our community, we know all our neighbors. Like, we know everybody.
Yeah, all of our neighbors are great.
They come by when we're doing things and talk to us, bring their friends to check out the inside when we have the doors cracked.
Well, we would have a couple of them on our board of directors, trying to help us guide the thing to make sure the neighbors are good and everything. We have just a lot of support from the neighbors for sure. They were trying to give us clothes and shoes and stuff to help anybody out, and just whatever they could do.
I think they like that we have all different kinds of people coming in and out of the community, and I think sometimes the North Side gets a bad rap, and when our friends and family and skate community come visit, nobody feels like it's dangerous or anything like that. And so it's good to have people, see that this is a community of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, of course, the folks living there
Right.
need amenities and need safe
exactly.
places
One
to
thing-
go to do things.
Those types of meeting places, especially being on the north side, one of the things I like seeing a lot is we'd bring people in from all over. And so I'd see, different families and friend groups showing up. And you'd be like, all right, so like that's a bunch of kids that I know they live in Chesterfield. And that's a bunch of kids that I know live in Walnut Park. And like those two groups of kids and their parents, they don't interact very much in our city, and they probably should. And that like having these types of large communal meeting places where people of all different walks of life can meet is important. And skateboarding is an excellent avenue for that. Like I remember, like Bebo talked about
tip of the spear.
Yeah, tip of
Dave.
the spear. Like Brian, like I think the example you talk about with Brian Beck, what you did with KHVT is important. Like he's a skater and he's a lawyer, and like a lot of kids see that and they're like, maybe I can be a lawyer one day. And Brian can talk a lot about that sort of thing, like the power of like mentorship through skateboarding, and that was a huge part of what we did at Sk8 Liborious too.
I think listeners can hear that your energy level has not been diminished.
That's right.
No, we're stoked. We're still real stoked.
But in our last minute here, I mean, I do wonder what has given you strength in these last couple weeks in the face of this calamity.
It's definitely our community.
Yeah.
The people that have come out it's been overwhelming. I mean, just like the day, I happened to be at the building whenever it caught on fire, and two other guys were as well, and we were. It was devastating. You know what I'm saying? It was while we were there watching the rectory burn and seeing it getting ready to go to the other building. It was just so defeating. You know what I'm saying? Such a defeating thing. But then within minutes of that, we were getting thousands of messages and phone calls and everything of people from all over the world trying to support us. And that right there shows us that we were doing something right. And that we need to be there.
And then we watched it burn until they got the tower out at 4:30 in the morning, and we turned around, and there were 25, 30 people there at 8:30 in the morning talking about, okay, how are we going to get this done?
Yep.
So it's the tenacity of the people involved in the project. I mean, it's incredibly inspiring. These guys are inspiring.
And our team too, like Lorna and Brian. Shout out to
our board,
Jennifer Russell and Steve and Uncle John and everybody involved.
Franchi,
Gabe McKee, everybody. We have an amazing crew.
Dave Blum, Brian Bedwill, and Lorna Curdy and crew, all from Sk8 Liborious. Thank you so much for joining us today, and best wishes with all this.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Danny Wissentowski.
With audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.